In today's video, I'm going to be creating my own custom palette using a number of singles that I have, as well as some of my palettes that have removable magnetic pans. So I'm going to show you the process of creating this palette, as well as just kind of talk you through my thought process in choosing the shades that I did and why I wanted to create this palette. And then I'm going to put this eye look together using the palette. So if you'd like to see all of that, just keep on watching. Before we get into it, if you're new here, welcome. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, I would love for you to consider doing so. If you like this video, if you like my content, I tend to focus on high-end, luxury, and indie makeup, and a combination of reviewing and testing out new products, but also diving into my collection and playing with older makeup that I already have. So if that sounds good to you, I would love for you to consider subscribing. So I'm first going to actually cut back to when I put this palette together and show you the footage of choosing the shades and assembling the palette. So let's roll that now. So now that you've seen everything that I chose for my palette, I did rearrange a little bit since I first put it together. I put it together yesterday, and then today is my first time playing with it, but I just rearranged the shades a little bit so it made a little bit more sense to me and looked a little bit more visually appealing. I chose to put them in this Oden's Eye refillable palette because I don't have a lot of magnetic palettes. Really, the only other magnetic palette I have is the large Clionadh one that you would have seen in the footage of me putting this together. And I wanted something that was a little bit compact, but I could still fit different shapes and sizes of pans in it. So this was my best and really my only choice for a magnetic palette for this, and I think it works fine. There are of course some empty spaces there, but I'm okay with the way that this looks. So I wanted to choose a number of different mattes that would fill all my matte needs and wants basically. So I chose this really light matte shade, which actually does come across a little bit darker on the skin than it looks in the pan there, just to have a really easy shade. If I want to start out a look with that, it's a nice easy starting place, and I actually did that today. It was the first powder shadow that I used today in this look. So it just creates a nice base, a nice transition to blend other shades into, but it's also great if I want to do a super simple one eyeshadow, no makeup type look, because it's not very detectable on the skin, but it still has the ability to add a little bit of shadow and definition on my skin tone. So that was a must for this palette. And then I've chosen a couple of other neutral toned mattes. This is from the Natasha Denona My Dream palette, the shade Nurture, I believe. And this has just been a go-to shade since I got that palette. I'll often pull out that My Dream palette and only use that shade for a sort of similar purpose as this one, but it's a little bit deeper, adds a little bit more structure and depth. But a really great neutral shade, and it also works for contouring my lips, so I definitely wanted to have that in here. And then this is a nice deep brown shade, which is very useful for me if I want to deepen up any type of look. This is the type of shade that I will go to first. So that's one that's from the Eldridge Cinnabar palette. And then the other neutral matte here is also from the Eldridge Cinnabar palette, and it's just a more mid-toned but kind of warmer shade. So where this one's a little bit more cool leaning, this one is a little bit more warm. It can look a little bit kind of golden on the eye, which I thought would be a nice pairing for a lot of these shades and would just help me to take any look into a warmer direction if that's where I want to go with it. The other two mattes here are more colorful, so we have this pink from the Retro Glam palette from Natasha Denona, and this one is from that same palette, this beautiful kind of cooler toned sagey green. So these are just colors that I thought would be fun to have in there. I love to use this type of a pink shade, and I think this is an excellent example of one of those kind of dusty, rosy, mid-toned pink shades. That doesn't turn orange on my eyes, so that was kind of a must-have in there. And then this one is one that probably won't get as much use, but it's a color that I really like on me, I like the way it looks, and I thought that it could pair really nicely with a number of the shades in here. And I was actually especially envisioning a look with that in the outer half of the eye, and then this Oden's Eye single here on the rest of the lid. So I have 3 of the Oden's Eye singles, this one here, this one, and then that one down there. So this one is just a really nice, light, super shiny, wet, glossy looking champagne color. So I know that I'll get a lot of use out of that. And then here we have that beautiful multi-chrome shade, which has kind of a green, a pink, a gold. It's really versatile. And so I thought that could go with a lot of different looks as well. And then up here is the pink shade Mia, which I recently used in my Valentine's Day look. And it's just this beautiful kind of cool toned pink that I've had a really hard time finding a shade like that. And I wanted to include it in this palette so I could continue to play with it and just get more use out of these Oden's Eye singles as a whole. By having them in this everyday palette. And then the rest of the shadows in here are all from Clionadh. So this one here, this one, those two are not multi-chromes, they're just shimmer shades. And then these 2 multi-chromes right here. So I don't get as much use out of my Clionadh shadows as I would like to. And I thought that having this little custom palette was the perfect opportunity to get more use out of them and really enjoy these shadows more. Because they're in that big palette, I just don't tend to pull it out. I work from other palettes or other singles most of the time. So I pulled in this light shade. It's sort of similar to this champagne from Oden's Eye, but it's a cooler toned version, and it's not really a champagne. It's more of a kind of pearly color. And so you can see the difference there. It's a much kind of cooler toned, lighter pearly color. So I just thought that that would be really useful to have for inner corner, brow bone highlight, or brightening up a look. And then this beautiful pink, which features heavily in my look today. It's this stunning kind of rose gold, which is a go-to type of shade for me, and I thought would pair really nicely with that dusty pink shade from the Natasha Denona palette. And then the two multi-chromes from Clionadh. These are both stained glass shades. This one, it's an olivey green, so I couldn't resist that. And it's just so beautiful. What you see there is the kind of olivey, almost golden green, but it also shifts to a more neutral kind of mid-toned, like foresty type green or emerald green. And then this one here I chose because it's a little bit more neutral. It comes across as a bit of a purple, but there's quite a lot going on. There's even a green shift in there and a deeper kind of violet shift as well. I ended up choosing that one instead of the two purpley shades that I have in the Oden's Eye singles, partly because it's smaller, but also because it has those shifts in it. So I think it can kind of take the place of both of those in this palette. So it would be useful in that way as well. So those are all the shades, and I just wanted this to be as versatile as possible. I wanted to be able to create really neutral, basic, everyday looks, to be able to do no makeup, but also to do a little bit more complex looks and more fun and slightly colorful looks as well. So I'm pretty happy with the shades that I've chosen. We'll see how it goes over the next few weeks using this. I'm gonna try to just use this as mainly my only eyeshadow palette for the next few weeks and just see how many different types of looks I can do with it, if I can get good use out of all the shades in here, and just have fun playing around with this. So now let's get into doing this eyeshadow look. I do want to start out with a little bit of a colored base for this look. I just used the NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer as a bit of an eye primer, and now I'm going to go in with the Victoria Beckham Bordeaux liner. And just again, like I did in a recent video with the black shade, just use this as more of a cream shadow just to provide a little bit of a base for this eye look. Now that I have that base on, I'm ready to go into my little custom palette here. I rearranged it a little bit from when I first put it together. I just like this presentation a little bit better, and it's a little bit easier for me to organize my thoughts around how I want to use it. So I have most of the mattes up here on the top row, and then the other one that I couldn't fit up there with them down here, and then all the rest of these are shimmers. So I have no idea what I want to do today. I don't want it to be too light of a look. I want a little bit of depth and smokiness, but I really don't know where I'm going to go with this. So I'm just going to kind of play it by ear. I'm going to start out very simple with this very light shade just for a little bit of shadowing in the crease. It's a shadow that I think is from the Natasha Denona Biba palette. And I'm also going to pull that same shade along my lower lash line. Now I'm going to go into this pinkish shade here from the Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette and just introduce a little bit of that color up in the crease as well. And now into this deep brown shade here, which is one of the shadows from the Lisa Eldridge Cinnabar palette. Built up a good amount of depth with that, and I haven't worried too much about blending it out because it's mostly going to be covered up with a shimmer, but I want to blend out the edges again a little bit with a lighter shade, so I think I'm just going to go back into this one and tap between that and the pink that I've already used. And then I'm going into this shadow, this shiny pink, which is a Clionadh shadow. It's the shade Linny. I think this was a limited edition, so it's not available anymore, but I think it's the perfect color for this look. So I'm picking that up on my Sonia G Worker from the Lotus brush collection, and I want to put that all over my lid. Going back into the pink matte because I brought the shimmer a little far up and it's quite intense, so it's diffusing the light a bit more than I want it to up in the crease. Bring down that shine and increase the definition a little bit. I'm going to continue through the inner corner and down a little bit of the bottom lash line with that same pink shimmer. Now I'm going into this other Clionadh shadow, which is the shade Opulent. That's in the Stained Glass collection. I'm just going to take a little bit of that on that same big fluffy brush and tap it off because I always get fallout from those stained glass shadows. And just kind of dust that over this little transition area where I had built up that deeper matte underneath. Just to add a little bit of extra dimension. And I'm feeling really drawn to using this green shade here, which is another Clionadh shadow. Just taking that on this small little brush, and I'm gonna bring it along the middle of the lower lash line. Actually, I want an even finer tipped brush, so I'm gonna use the Refer 21 instead. Now I'm ready to go in with liner, Victoria Beckham Cocoa Liner. I'm going to line my top lash line and a little tiny bit on the outer edge of my lower lash line, which I'm going to blend out. I finished off with mascara, and here's the completed eye look. I also applied some blush off camera. I used the Westman Atelier Mimi blush. I figured it would be a good choice because it's a nice neutral color. And now I'm ready to go in with the lip. And I was thinking this look might be able to handle a bit of a deeper lip. So I thought I'd try the Night Thoughts lipstick from Lisa Eldridge. It's this beautiful, deep kind of black cherry type color, but it's a bit of a sheer formula. It's in the Lucent formula, so it's not quite as dark, or it doesn't have to be quite as dark as it looks in the bullet. But I think I'd better start off with a little bit of lip liner first. I'm gonna try with the Natasha Denona Ilana liner. It's a little bit of a cooler tone, so I'm just gonna line my lips with that. I often like to use a more nude toned lip liner, even with dark lipstick colors or bright lipstick colors, because I find it just helps to add some fullness to the lips without adding much color, and it creates a little bit of a softer effect while still adding that definition that I like to have. Before I got on camera, I also did a little bit of lip contouring, which I almost always do, and I used this shade from the Natasha Denona My Dream palette for that. It's part of the reason I chose this shade to be in this palette, so I figured it would make sense to use that as well. So just to let you know that that's also happening around the lips. So now let's go in with Night Thoughts and see how this looks. With my first layer there, I really rubbed it into the lips so it's almost like a stain. So I have that nice base there with the deep color, but I'm gonna go in with another layer on top. For me, I tend to lose a lot of my lipstick color right around the center of the lip, so I'm trying to keep the pigment a little bit more concentrated there and just work on kind of softening and blending out the edges. So here's the completed look. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you liked seeing me create this palette and this eye look using these shadows. Let me know if you have any questions or comments below. I always love to see those. And if you'd like to see more from me and you haven't subscribed to my channel already, I'd love for you to do so. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.